right, my guest today is Richard Hatfield. Richard Hatfield is the president of Lightning Motors and also the founder. And Richard and I have known each other for, let's see, since the days of Methuselah, I think. at least since the days we had our first meeting at Buck's restaurant there up in, what is it, Woodland Hills or something like that?
Woodside, yes.
Woodside, that's right. Yep, absolutely. And you drove up on the very first prototype Lightning bicycle that you built. And now here we are. God, how many years has it been later? It's been almost a decade. Since then, you have now got VIN number 001, your very first production bike ready to go out the door. So, Richard, let's catch everybody up on what's happened over the last few years here with Lightning.
Yeah, so it's really been the process of developing the technology and vetting the technology in competition and you know, pushing it and finding out what breaks and how far we can take it and getting it ready for the market.
Well, when you started off, if I remember correctly, you had a what was it? I think an EV, a motor you had salvaged out of the EV1, something like that. That's what you were using to power the bike by. How has the technology from that early prototype bike, how's the technology changed over the last number of years?
Well, you know, there are a lot more OEM vendors in the market now, obviously, with the 150,000 plus OEM electric cars. So there's a lot more offerings for motor technology. There are a lot more vendors involved in this. The batteries, as you know, are just getting better and better and better. We're approaching something similar to a Moore's Law in battery improvement. So, you know, it's a great time to be involved in this.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this production bicycle that you've got. What are...
sorry to correct you, it's a little more than a bicycle.
Well, I'm sorry, bicycle. I'm sorry, I got bicycles on the brain. The motorcycle itself. What is it? I mean, you've got... Not only do you have a lot of vendors out there that can supply you with the various, you know, parts that go into the bike, but you've also got a fair number of competitors that are starting to come on now in this particular field. One of them, of course, just here last week was an individual we both know, Gilles Dupasteur and the Vauxhall bike. And that's only one of probably a half dozen we could name that have, you know, since you began your endeavor, have jumped into this marketplace. So let's talk, what differentiates the Lightning bike from, for example, the Zero bikes of the world and things of the Bramos and that type of thing that are out there?
Well, the way we see it, it's the differentiation between a Tesla Model S and a Nissan Leaf.
Okay.
You know, the Zero is a good, solid vehicle. It's kind of a Nissan Leaf equivalent for motorcycles, and our bikes are more similar to a Tesla Model S. The performance of our bikes are, you know, equal or exceed the performance of the best gas bikes that are available now. So, you know, and that's something that when we have gone out to compete, and most recently this year at Pikes Peak, went head-to-head with the top internal combustion engine teams and came out on top by a significant margin. So, you know, that's one of the things that separates it. There are a lot of people that are interested in this space, and I think that validates what we're doing. But, you know, we've been out, you know, testing and proving and developing. So I think, you know, like any transportation business, there's always competition, and we're focused on what can we do to stay ahead of the curve.
Well, let's talk about Pikes Peak. I mean, that had to be a thrill. I've seen video of it that was done, and maybe for people who aren't familiar with what happened this past summer, kind of catch us up to speed. What did you guys actually achieve there on Pikes Peak this year?
Well, in our perspective, it was the first time an electric vehicle competed head-to-head against the best gas vehicles in the world and came out on top. So Pikes Peak is 12.5 miles with 156 corners, and you know, it's a fairly tight course. There are a lot of corners with several thousand-foot drop-offs. we were accelerating to something approaching 160 miles an hour on these short straightaways, breaking down in some places to 20 or 30 miles an hour, and then, repeating that, to the top of the hill. And, the rider on our bike had won it the last 2 years for Ducati, and he qualified faster on our electric bike than the Ducatis that had been prepared for him. So, to us, it was a major milestone, not just for Lightning, but for electric vehicles in general.
So you beat the best gas bike by how much?
21 seconds.
21 seconds. So that...
on a run like that is, time to get off on the bike and pull up a chair and wait for the other ones to show up.
Now, you didn't obviously run sort of head-to-head with, that's not how the Pikes peak. It's not like you put 4 bikes together and they all take off at the same time. These are time trials up to the top of the mountain then.
They are time trials, but, when we prepared for that run, we were there a good part of June, and we did about 10 test days. So there were a lot of test days where we caught other bikes and passed them. In fact, there's a few interesting videos where guys on 1000cc Suzuki's and Honda get passed by our bike and make comments about it. But during the actual run, the organizers were aware that, Carlin was the top rider. Our bike had been top in every practice, this year. So when they staged Carlin, they gave him enough time that there wasn't anyone likely that he would catch during that run.
Right, okay. So let's talk about some of the technology that's in this bike, and particularly the production bike. Are there going to be a couple of models here? Or is there going to be like a race model, and there's going to be like a street model? What are your plans there?
So the bike that we're leading with, again, we're taking Tesla's lead on this. I think there's a lot of things that Tesla did right in marketing. So the first bike that we're leading with is our street version of our race bike. Okay. So it's the same bike that we went 118 miles an hour and set 3-lane speed records at Bonneville with. Same bike technology that we won Pikes Peak, that we won the FIME Power Championship in Le Mans, France with. So, a bike that will go head-to-head with any gas bike that's produced and at least hold its own. So we're leading with the high-end, high-performance bike, and then later in 2014, we'll come in with a 600cc equivalent bike. So kind of a mid-level, more affordable bike that suits more of the center of the bell curve of the market.
Okay, so power-wise, this bike that you're going number 001 here, give us some sense, what's the horsepower rating on this thing?
So it really depends on, what we set it to.
Okay.
So 001 is actually one of the mid-level bikes. It's not one of the upper-level bikes. So that's in the, it's very equivalent to an internal combustion engine 650 twin bike.
Okay. So how do you, when you say mid-level, is this all, if I were to order, I wanted the top-of-the-line bike there, I would have what, more battery capacity, access, a bigger motor on it, or that's all sort of electronically tweaked? What sort of separates that top of the line, no, money is no object bike, as opposed to the 001?
So the top level bike is a bike that a good rider could get on and compete at Pikes Peak and win overall against factory prepared race bikes, or could take to a road race circuit and compete head to head against the best gas bikes. So very high horsepower. We can set the horsepower at a variety of different levels. Again, meeting or exceeding the best 1000cc gas bike horsepower ratings. Race quality suspension, race quality wheels, brakes. So, a bike that if someone was to prepare it for AMA Pro Racing, they would choose the same level of preparation that we're selling these bikes with.
Okay, so what are we talking about price-wise here? When I get ready to write my check, what am I going to write my check for?
So the 200+ mile an hour bike that's full race quality ready is a $38,000 bike.
Okay, all right. And the bike 001, the sort of mid-level?
So that bike is, again, in very high level of trim, but not the same level of horsepower. That's a 16 to $17,000 bike.
Okay, so it's about half the amount of money. What? Who do you see buying this? I mean, one of the issues, and I guess I look forward to the day when somebody actually decides that they're going to drive one of these to Sturgis, right? But I mean, obviously, one of the things that it's 12 miles, all bore out, you know, all the way to the top of Pikes Peak, which is great. But what about the guy that says, look, I just want to be able to go, you know, have a nice weekend with my wife on the back of the bike, but I can only go 50 miles or something. So where's that at?
Well, the bike that we raced at Pikes Peak and raced at Bonneville, raced at Le Mans, that bike's capable of over 100 miles on the freeway.
Okay.
So, but you know, extreme performance demands a lot more battery consumption than typical cruising. We've built a battery pack that will fit on the same bike that in testing looks like it's good for between 150 and 170 miles using the very high energy density batteries that have been are used by some of the cars like the Tesla.
Okay, so that's at sort of street speeds, 45 miles an hour or higher, or I mean that's when you look at, for example, motor scooters, they always quote 60 to 80 miles range, but that's driving at 30 miles an hour. So what does that translate into for that range?
Yeah, that's 65 to 75 miles an hour, running posted freeway speeds.
Okay, so is there the equivalent of a supercharger network out there where I can drop in with my bike and plug it in and be good to go in half an hour? How does that work?
The same J1772 plug that can be used on a level 2 charger will also work on chargers we have on our bikes. We're working now on a protocol to work with the CHAdeMO, which would give, realistically, periodically, you could have a 20-minute charge time with the bike.
Yeah, how big is the typically? I'm sure the pack will vary depending on how much you want to pay for the bike. But typically, what do you think people are going to order? The size, like we're talking 10 kilowatts, 15 kilowatts?
Yeah, at this point, 10 kilowatts is kind of an entry-level pack. Okay. The very high energy density pack that we did, again, it's not capable of the same horsepower to go, 218 miles an hour, but it's capable of more performance than most people could use on the street. That pack was over 22 kilowatt hours on the bikes.
Okay. So there's significant, that's equivalent almost to what's in the Nissan Leaf.
Very similar to a Nissan Leaf, but on a 490-pound motorcycle.
Yeah, right. Nissan Leaf is, I think, 24 kilowatts. This is 22. That puts it certainly in the range of the Mitsubishi IMEV. So interesting. Wow. Oh, well, let's talk about your production plans. Are you set up to do production there, and you're in, not Redwood City, California, but right near Redwood City, so it's San Carlos or somewhere?
San Carlos, yeah. We're on American Street where US rode the electric scooter prototype that we put together.
Okay, all right, so you're still there.
We are. So we've taken over the other side of the building now. We have an assembly area set up. So the plan is really to have all of our vendors send components here and do final assembly here in San Carlos on American Street.
Okay, so how much, this is a question everybody's going to ask, how much of this is North American sourced materials and how much of this has to come from, beyond our shores, so to speak?
That's a great question. We've been working with Interdel, our battery supplier, who's based in Indianapolis. The batteries are certainly one of the significant components in the bike, both size, weight, and cost. Interdel is an American company, but they also have ownership outside of the country. Right, yeah. They also have manufacturing outside of the country. So I think some of that comes down to, really how do you look at it. Right. We have a lot of contract manufacturers right now that are making parts for us that are based right here in U.S.
Okay, very good. So if you're going to give a percentage, of here's a fantastic American-built, American-assembled bike, American-engineered bike. Would you give some kind of percentage to what part of that is U.S. based, or is that even important?
Well, it is important. It is important. So it depends on if you're talking about money or if you're talking about volume and components. But
Right.
I think something in the 60 to 70% range is realistic. But for example, a high-end wheel or a high-end brake. A Marchesini is a good high-quality forged wheel manufacturer. They have distribution here in the U.S. They have company based here, but they have manufacturing on a global basis. Same with Brembo for brakes. So some of that is kind of beyond our scope, and as far as where they're sourcing it.
Right. Well, let's talk about what are your distribution plans then? Is there like a showroom, and everybody's going to have to come to the showroom there in San Carlos, or are you setting up distributorships with Suzuki dealers or Yamaha dealers or Harley Davidson, or what are your plans of actually getting product into people's hands to test drive?